Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte features everybody's favorite murderous, dastardly, dark, scheming, threatening, machismo, gambling, mysterious psychopath who is intent on getting revenge upon the people who raised him. He's tall, dark, and ruthless, and totally dreamy. So why has Heathcliff attracted generations of romance readers? Why was the novel so popular? The short answer comes in two parts. First, Heathcliff perfectly mimics competence and confidence, especially in the face of difficult or challenging environments or surroundings. Secondly, he is entirely outwardly focused, specifically on Cathy. She is his entire life, the only person that he could ever love. Heathcliff, in a word, makes Cathy feel irreplaceable. Despite his villainous nature and the harm that he wishes on other people in this environment and in the places that he lives, he will do anything for Cathy. He is a monster, but he's her monster. That's the short answer, but now let's really get into why this novel and this character work so well. So why is Heathcliff such a memorable character, and why does he work so well as a romantic lead despite the terrible things that we see him doing throughout the course of the novel? And how come nobody ever tries to make Wuthering Heights the movie, despite the lasting popularity of the novel? Today we'll cover all of this, as well as, of course, the writing techniques of Emily Bronte, who's considered to be one of the brilliant writers of the Victorian age. But first, thanks so much to the 164 of you who have already subscribed. And now, let's jump into it. I hate to say it because I avoided reading Wuthering Heights for so long, but after a second reading, it's become one of my favorite classics of all time. I find it to be incredibly accessible, I find it to be extremely entertaining, and Emily Bronte really gives a masterclass on certain writing techniques that you don't see very much anymore. There are a lot of characters in this novel, so before we continue, we're going to draw out a little character map. Forgive my drawing skills, this really is the best that I can do. The first two characters to note are Nellie, the housekeeper, and Mr. Lockwood, the tenant. Wuthering Heights is a framed narrative. That is, it's a story within a story. In the book, Nellie is the one telling the story of the estate and its inhabitants. She's telling the story to Mr. Lockwood, who is going to be the new tenant at Wuthering Heights, which is the name of the estate. So these two characters act as the frame within the story. They also act as the stand-ins for the author and the audience. Nellie, who tells the story, is the stand-in for Emily Bronte, while Mr. Lockwood is the stand-in for the audience. Lockwood asks Nellie the questions that the reader would ask if they were present in the story. In the first chapter, this bit of framing can be a little bit confusing because you don't know who the characters are yet, and you're not familiar with the estates. There's a lot of different sorts of bits of language that are used in a Victorian novel, but after the first chapter or two, you'll get used to it. One of the benefits of a framed narrative like this, in which some characters are gossiping about other characters that exist in real life in the novel, is that, well, it really heightens the drama of everything that's happening in the story. It's sort of like listening to what's going on in current celebrity culture or in the news with some famous person. Because it's happening live and to people really out there in the world, it feels much more dramatic. And you feel like you know the players who are engaging in the drama. Similarly, the wealthy people who own these estates, such as Wuthering Heights, are people that everybody else in town, especially the housekeepers and the people who work on the estates, can gossip about. Everybody else is very curious about these sort of reclusive people with all this money who live in the great estates out in the moors. You can think of the Earnshaws and the Lintons sort of like they're the Kardashians or the Musks of the time period. I guess the Kardashians would be a better example. They're fun to gossip about. All right, let's move on to the central characters, at least to this video. So we got good old Heathbar, he's our main man. Adopted into the family, he's always been an outsider, a loner, mistreated by his adoptive older brother. Hindley, the older brother, believes that Heathcliff stole the love of his own father and sister, and he hates Heathcliff for it. For their entire childhood, he tries to tear Heathbar down, bully, and degrade him. Then there's Cathy, the wild girl of Wuthering Heights, who loves the moors and Heathcliff. But she can't marry Heathcliff because he has no money. She has to marry Edgar Linton, a boy who lives across the moors. Another astonishingly wealthy family, the Lintons have two children, Edgar and Isabella. Edgar is in love with Cathy, and Isabella is in love with Heathcliff. But Cathy and Heathcliff love each other. They make fun of the blonde Lintons because of how soft they are. But Cathy and Heathcliff can't be together because they don't have enough money. Back in those times, marriage was an alliance. It was a way to secure the survival of your family name and your family estate. Cathy is going to have to marry Edgar because, well, the Lintons are doing much better than the Earnshaws. After a last-ditch effort to marry Cathy, Heathcliff runs away in disgrace, never to be heard from again, until years later when he reappears. When Heathcliff reappears, he's wealthy, he's well-dressed and well-spoken, well-read, well-traveled. He looks to be the picture of a gentleman. This is very different from how he grew up, being bullied, forced to sleep in the barn, dirty. He's really grown into quite a young man, so it seems. Now that Heathcliff is wealthy, he's determined to win back the love of his life from her husband, and he'll do anything to accomplish that. So these are the characters and the general setup of Wuthering Heights. You can see how this setup has just unbelievable dramatic potential. There's tension between just about every character that we come across, and we're seeing the story through the eyes of the housekeeper, who keeps a very close eye on the gossip and all of the most important dramatic events that happen around the state. She's quiet and she's always listening. I think that one of the best parts of this Emily Bronte novel is her ability to set up a situation in which drama can really be limitless. There's so much that can happen here. The setup gives the reader just about everything that they could want. A years-long, slow-burning romance, desire clashing with necessity, and of course, the cruelty associated with climbing the social ladder. All right, now let's get back to Heathcliff. Heathcliff is the embodiment of the classic romantic trope that is the untamed monster. Though he's a monster, there is one woman who's not like any other girl who he loves, who can tame him despite the monster that he truly is, who can take him and transform him into an upstanding individual who's a leader in society. And as you're watching this right now, you can probably think of about 10 other stories in which this trope is used. I'm not here to make fun of it, I'm simply describing it because it works. What's attractive about Heathcliff, at least in the novel, isn't just what's on paper. It's about how he makes Cathy feel. Heathcliff makes Cathy feel like she is the only girl in the world, that she's irreplaceable, that she's somebody who's worth fighting for, somebody who's worth going off to dangerous foreign lands and working as much as you can to amass a fortune. And then, even after all of that, you'll still come back for her. It's all about how Heathcliff makes Cathy feel. That's why he's such a great romantic lead. The way that Heathcliff treats Cathy is also attractive to the other women in the novel, especially Isabella. She wants to win his affections for herself so that she can feel how Cathy feels. The problem is, Heathcliff can't feel the way he feels about Cathy for any other woman, especially Isabella, who he resents. Eventually, Isabella finds this out with disastrous consequences and some spoilers that I won't give you right now. As it turns out, Heathcliff isn't really confident, he isn't really competent, he simply mimics these skills to trick people. He's not self-assured, he's terrified, mean-spirited, and cruel. Heathcliff is a bait and switch, compelling and mysterious. It's only once you get to know him that you find out that behind his dark demeanor, there really is no secret. There's nothing that he's hiding. He is exactly how he appears. Isabella's affections only make Cathy want Heathcliff even more. It's another classic. One person finds you attractive, and all of a sudden it seems like 3 or 4 more people find you attractive. As far as these classic tropes go, Heathcliff does check all the boxes. If I were to give one criticism of this novel, it's that we never learn how Heathcliff goes out and amasses his fortune. Now, there could be a number of reasons for this. I think that the best reason to explain this is the one that doesn't reduce the novel, which is that, well, Emily Bronte knows that that's not the story. The story is the romance, and the story is the landscape, and the characters interacting with each other. We don't need a long section about how Heathcliff earned his money. Now, I might respond to that, well, you could have given us a line or two, or told us that he was in the military or in finance or something. I guess you don't really need it, and honestly, it's a very, very minor criticism, and I'm not really sure it's necessary. As a reader, that's something that I like to read about, but would it really have helped the novel? I'm not sure. It does feel a little bit like a Deus Ex Machina, where Heathcliff goes out and all of a sudden he's got this big fortune. But again, it keeps the story going, and it's something that's necessary for the drama that'll happen later on in the text. So really, I'm not that upset with it. Another minor criticism is that, well, it's really hard to like any of the characters outside of the entertainment that they provide. But again, I don't think you need to like them. The novel's about entertainment. It's sort of like watching the Kardashians. you're not necessarily watching, or the Jersey Shore is a good example too. You're not necessarily watching because you love the people being depicted. You're watching because you're just so entertained by what's happening. All right, everybody, I won't go too much further into it because I don't want to do as many spoilers as I do sometimes. So if you've read the novel, please let me know what you think down below. Let me know something else that I should read. Let me know what you think about Emily Bronte, any of those things. And if you have any questions about something that you're working on, leave your questions in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Once again, the best way to help this channel out is to subscribe. Every subscription counts, especially at this point when the channel is just starting out. And of course, everybody make sure that you get enough sleep and drink enough water. It's the summertime, really easy to get dehydrated, stay out too late. I understand, but make sure you take care of yourself. All right, everybody, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.